You felt it, didn't you? Not the obvious kind. Not the loud, movie-type moment where everything clicks and violins start playing. No, this was quieter, almost uncomfortable, like something shifted in the room and neither of you wanted to look directly at it. It was in the pause, right after one of you almost said something real. And if you're honest, really honest, you've been replaying that moment more than you'd like to admit. Before we go any further, if this already feels a little too familiar, a little too specific, go ahead and like the video. Not for me, for that part of you that's been trying to understand this but hasn't had the words yet. And if you want more of these conversations, you can stay. Because what you're feeling right now isn't confusion, it's recognition. And that's where it gets dangerous. You see, most men think they'll know exactly when they're falling for someone. They imagine clarity, certainty, a kind of emotional confidence. But what actually happens is much messier, especially when she feels it too. Because when two people start to matter to each other at the same time, something strange happens. It doesn't feel like safety, it feels like risk. And risk doesn't pull you closer right away, it makes you hesitate. You start noticing the way she looks at you when she thinks you're not paying attention. There's something there, something soft, but quickly hidden, like she caught herself. And you do the same thing, by the way. You pull back just slightly after moments of connection. You change the subject, you joke, you act normal. But inside, something's building. And here's the part no one really talks about. When two people are already emotionally invested, but neither one is ready to admit it, they don't move forward. They orbit. Close enough to feel each other, but never quite landing. And that space, that in-between, that's where things get complicated. Because it starts to feel like mixed signals, like confusion, like maybe you're imagining it, but you're not. You're just watching two people carefully avoid something real, including yourself. And the reason this is so hard to recognize is because on the surface, everything still looks normal. Conversations happen, messages get sent. Maybe you even laugh together more than you do with anyone else. But underneath that, there's tension. Not bad tension, just unspoken truth. And tonight, I want to show you something most people miss. Two signs, not obvious ones, not the kind you'll find in a checklist. These are quieter, psychological, a little uncomfortable to admit. Because once you see them, you can't unsee them. And you'll have to decide what to do next. So just stay with me for a minute. Because if this is happening in your life right now, you're not stuck. You're just standing at the edge of something neither of you has named yet. The first sign doesn't look like love. In fact, if you're not paying attention, it looks like distance. And that's what confuses you. Because there are moments, very real moments, where she feels close, present, almost open. You catch glimpses of who she is when she's not guarded. The way her voice softens slightly. The way she holds eye contact just a second longer than necessary. And then she pulls back. Not dramatically, not in a way you can call out, just enough to make you question everything you felt 5 minutes ago. And that shift? It bothers you more than you'd expect, because it's inconsistent, and your mind starts trying to solve it like a problem. Did I say something wrong? Is she losing interest? Was that moment even real, or did I imagine it? But here's the uncomfortable truth most men don't consider. That pullback isn't always about losing interest. Sometimes it's the exact opposite. Sometimes it's what happens when she feels something, and it scares her. Not because of you, because of what it could mean. You have to understand, when someone has learned to protect themselves emotionally, connection doesn't feel safe at first. It feels exposing. So when she lets herself be present with you, even briefly, it creates a kind of internal tension, like she stepped a little too far outside of her comfort zone. And her instinct is to regain control. So she distances, just enough to feel steady again. Now here's where it gets more complicated. You do the same thing. Maybe not in the exact same way. Maybe yours looks like becoming more casual, less expressive, slightly harder to read. But it's still distance. And neither of you calls it what it is. You just label it as mixed signals. But it's not random, it's patterned, a quiet push and pull, where both of you are testing the same invisible boundary. How close is too close? And every time one of you gets near that edge, the other feels it, even if you don't talk about it. That's why the connection feels strong, but unstable. Because it's not built on indifference, it's built on awareness. You're both paying attention, probably more than you want to admit. And that awareness makes every small shift feel bigger. Every delay in response, every change in tone, every moment where something meaningful almost gets said, but doesn't. Those aren't accidents, they're interruptions. Moments where feeling tried to become something more and got stopped. Not by a lack of interest, but by fear of what happens if it continues. And the hardest part? From the outside, no one would see this. They just think it's casual, undefined, maybe even unimportant. But you know better. Because casual doesn't stay in your mind like this. Casual doesn't make you replay conversations, searching for meaning between words. What you're experiencing isn't confusion, it's restraint, from both sides. And once you recognize that, the dynamic starts to feel very different. Less like something fading away, and more like something being held back. The second sign is even quieter. It doesn't show up in what you say to each other, it shows up in what you both avoid saying. And if you really think about it, there are conversations you've almost had with her. Not once, multiple times. Moments where the air shifted, where the topic drifted close to something real. Something that would have changed the dynamic if either of you had taken one more step. But you didn't. She didn't either. And it wasn't accidental. You both felt it, that invisible line. The one you don't cross because once you do, things aren't casual anymore. There's a very specific kind of restraint that happens when two people already care more than they're ready to admit. You start editing yourself in real time. You type something, then delete it. You almost ask a question, then soften it into a joke. You feel something genuine rising up, and then immediately cover it with something lighter, safer, less revealing. Not because it's fake, but because it's controlled. And control feels safer than honesty when the stakes are unclear. Now here's where it gets a little unsettling. She's doing the same thing. You can hear it sometimes if you're paying attention. The way she starts a sentence with one intention and ends it somewhere else. The way her tone shifts when things get just a little too personal. The quick redirection, the subtle humor, the "it's not a big deal" energy that doesn't quite match what you felt a second before. That's not randomness. That's awareness. She knows something is there. You know it too. But neither of you is confirming it. Because confirmation would mean responsibility. It would mean deciding what this is and what to do with it. And as long as it stays unspoken, you both get to feel it without having to risk it. That's the quiet agreement. Unintentional, but very real. And it creates this strange emotional space where everything feels significant, but nothing is defined. Where the connection deepens, but the language around it stays shallow. You talk, you laugh, you connect. But you don't name what's happening, and over time, that creates tension. Not the kind that explodes, the kind that lingers, the kind that shows up when you're alone, thinking about what you could have said, or what she might have meant, or why certain moments felt heavier than they should have. That's not overthinking, that's unexpressed truth looking for somewhere to go. And right now, it has nowhere. Because both of you are protecting something, your image, your independence, your emotional safety, but also the connection itself. Because once it's spoken, it can change. And that possibility? It's enough to keep both of you quiet, even when silence is the only thing holding you back. There's something else happening here, something most people never slow down enough to notice. It's not just that you're both holding back, it's how you're holding back. Because if this was simple disinterest, it would feel clean. You'd drift apart. Conversations would fade naturally. There'd be space, and eventually, indifference. But that's not what this feels like, is it? This feels charged. Like even the normal conversations carry weight. Like a simple message from her can shift your entire mood, and you don't even like admitting that part. You tell yourself it's nothing. You stay composed. You respond casually. But there's a delay sometimes, not because you're busy, but because you're choosing your words more carefully than you would with anyone else. And that choice, that small, almost invisible effort, is where the truth leaks out. Because people don't become careful with someone they don't care about. They become careful when something matters. And right now, she matters. More than you've said out loud. Maybe more than you planned. And the same tension exists on her side. That's why there are moments where she seems unusually aware of you. Not in a dramatic way, just attentive in a way that feels different. She notices small changes, remembers details you didn't expect her to hold on to, reacts to things that most people would overlook. But then, almost as if she realizes she's showing too much, she recalibrates, pulls back into something more neutral, more controlled. And that shift? It's not coldness, it's self-protection. Because when someone starts to care, they become visible. And visibility invites risk. Now here's the part that might make you uncomfortable. You're not just reacting to her, you're participating in this. Every time you choose to stay slightly guarded instead of honest, every time you feel something real and decide to keep it to yourself, every time you let a moment pass instead of deepening it, you're reinforcing the very dynamic that's frustrating you. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something human. You're protecting yourself from uncertainty, from rejection, from the possibility that what you feel might not be fully returned. Even though, if you look closely, there's a strong chance it is, just equally restrained. And that's what creates this quiet stalemate. Not lack of interest, not incompatibility, just two people waiting for certainty that can only exist after someone takes a risk. But neither of you wants to be the first. So instead, you stay here, in this almost, where everything is felt, but nothing is fully allowed to become real. What makes this dynamic so emotionally intense isn't the closeness, it's the timing. Because there are moments where it almost slips out of your control. Like when she laughs at something you said, but a second too softly, like she didn't mean for it to sound that warm. Or when you catch yourself telling her something you don't usually tell people. Not personal secrets exactly, but the kind of thoughts you normally keep contained, controlled, private. And afterward you feel it, that slight internal pause, like you crossed a line you didn't plan to cross, and now something has shifted, even if nothing visibly changed. That's the part that messes with people. Nothing external is happening, but internally, everything is moving. And because nothing is officially defined, your mind starts trying to stabilize it. So you begin interpreting everything. Her tone, her timing, her pauses. You replay conversations like they contain hidden instructions. But what you're really doing is trying to answer a question neither of you has been brave enough to ask. Are we becoming something, or are we just emotionally close by accident? And here's the truth that most men don't like hearing. It's rarely an accident. Emotional closeness like this usually builds through repetition, through consistency, through shared attention that slowly becomes meaningful without permission. No dramatic moment, no confession, just accumulation. Until one day you realize you're already invested. And that realization doesn't feel romantic at first. It feels destabilizing. Because now the stakes are no longer theoretical. Now there's something to lose. And that's exactly when fear enters. Not loud fear, quiet fear. The kind that shows up as hesitation, as delayed responses, as "I'll say this later," and then never saying it. And she has that too. You can feel it in the way she sometimes stops just short of emotional clarity, like she approaches honesty, then gently steps away from it. Not because she doesn't feel it, but because feeling it doesn't automatically mean she's ready to handle it. And that's where things become complicated between two people like this, because both of you are experiencing something real, but neither of you is fully willing to stabilize it. So instead of clarity, you get rhythm. A back and forth emotional pattern, close, then slightly distant, open, then guarded, warm, then neutral. And over time, that rhythm becomes familiar, comforting even though it keeps you suspended. Because unpredictability, when it repeats long enough, starts to feel like connection. But it isn't stability, it's anticipation. And anticipation is addictive in its own quiet way. You start noticing her absence more than her presence. You start feeling her silence more than her words. And that's when you realize something uncomfortable. You're not just interacting anymore, you're interpreting each other. And interpretation always leaves space for imagination, which is exactly where emotional attachment grows, without permission. There's a moment in connections like this that most people don't recognize while it's happening. It feels ordinary at first. You're talking, maybe about something completely unrelated, work, random stories, small updates, nothing deep on the surface. But then, there's a pause. Not an awkward one, a loaded one. A pause where both of you could say something more, something real, something that would shift everything. And neither of you does. You both feel it though, that's the strange part. It's like standing at the edge of a conversation you've already started in your head, but neither of you is willing to speak out loud. So you fill it instead, with a joke, a change of topic, a soft distraction that keeps things normal. But normal is no longer what this is, and you know it. She knows it too. That's why certain silences feel heavier than others. That's why some replies feel slightly delayed, not because she doesn't care, but because she's adjusting herself before she responds. Trying to stay within safe emotional boundaries, while something inside her keeps pressing against them. And you're doing the same thing. You just express it differently. Maybe you become more composed than usual. Maybe you overcorrect into detachment. Or maybe you stay present but slightly guarded, like you're watching your own feelings instead of fully living them. It's subtle, but it's there. And over time, both of you begin to orbit the same realization without ever naming it. Something is happening here that doesn't fit the just friends category, but also hasn't been allowed to become anything else. So you exist in this middle space, where attraction is present, but permission is missing. Where emotional familiarity has formed, but commitment to it hasn't. And the tension doesn't come from confusion, it comes from recognition without action. Because deep down, there's a shared awareness that if either of you were to say it out loud, if someone were to finally name what's been building, it would force a change. And change introduces risk, rejection, timing issues, emotional consequences neither of you fully control. So instead, you both choose something quieter. You stay in contact, you stay available, you stay emotionally close enough to feel the connection, but not close enough to define it. And this is where it becomes psychologically interesting, because avoidance doesn't always look like distance. Sometimes it looks like consistency. Sometimes it looks like everything is fine. Sometimes it looks like two people who are deeply present in each other's lives, while carefully avoiding the one conversation that would make everything real. And the longer it continues, the more convincing it becomes. Until you start wondering whether you imagined the intensity in the first place. But you didn't. You're just witnessing something that hasn't been allowed to fully take shape yet. And that kind of almost relationship is often harder to step out of than something clearly defined. At some point, you stop asking whether she feels something. Not because the question is answered, but because the question starts to feel irrelevant compared to what's already happening between you. Because feelings aren't always the problem in situations like this. Timing is, readiness is, fear is. And fear doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it just quietly shapes behavior until neither person can tell what they originally wanted anymore. You start adapting to each other without meaning to. She becomes someone you think about in quieter moments of your day. Not in a dramatic way, just consistently. Like a thought that returns without effort. And you become someone she responds to with a level of attention that feels slightly different from everyone else. Not declared, just present. But here's the part that often goes unspoken. Two people can be emotionally aligned and still not move toward each other. Not because something is missing, but because something is uncertain. And uncertainty creates hesitation. So instead of movement, there is maintenance. You maintain the connection. You maintain the tone. You maintain the version of yourself that feels safest to show. And slowly, without noticing it, You both start to build a relationship that exists mostly in the space of almost. Almost honest conversations, almost confessions, almost moments that could have changed everything. And the more those almost moments accumulate, the more real the connection feels, even without definition. But there's something important you need to hear clearly. This kind of connection doesn't resolve itself just because it's strong. Strength doesn't guarantee direction. Sometimes it just makes the pause more intense. And eventually, one of two things happens. Either someone takes the risk of being honest, really honest, without control, without performance, without protection, or the connection slowly becomes something you both learn how to live inside of without ever naming it. Not because it fades, but because it stays unspoken long enough to become normal. And that's the part that often surprises people later. Not that it ended, but that it never officially began, even though it felt like it did. So if you're sitting with this right now, feeling like something is there but not fully formed, I don't want you to rush it, and I don't want you to ignore it either. Just be honest with yourself about one thing. Are you protecting the connection, or protecting yourself from what it might become? Because those are not the same thing. And the difference between them is usually where everything changes.